Parthenocarpic cucumbers. I have been interested in these for about 5 years. I'm amazed at the quality that you can get once you move cucumbers indoors. Even in the peak of summertime when cucumbers get really cheap, if you're growing them indoors and you've got gorgeous straight cucumbers, what I keep hearing from growers that go down this path is within limits of inventory, you can still sell them at $18 to $22 a box. I'm not saying auction prices, these are alternative market prices. I love the quality of them that they bring. So for the longest time I have been advocating Corinto and Lisboa as our two primary ones. They look like regular cucumbers, except that they are parthenocarpic. So parthenocarpic simply means they do not require pollination to set. They automatically set. The other side of that is that if they do get pollinated, you'll get crooks in them. You can get one side that will pollinate, so you want to keep bees out. In order to make the best possible cucumbers, keeping bees out also helps, so I screen my tunnels. So let's take a look at the varieties. This year, I set out to get economics, I set out to get yield numbers, and then we had high winds in the springtime and white mold take out my first planting. So you don't get numbers today, you get reality. This is what the cucumbers look like. So we're going to blaze through this because this is the end of the day. So these are the varieties I had in the 2017 trial. Corinto, Lisboa, which have long been my standards. Socrates, Katrina have been around for a long time. I've long recommended Piccolino. It is a nice smooth bait alpha types. Art was talking about market. And the market that you have determines the kind of cucumbers that you can sell. If you are in a conservative rural market, you are not going to sell smooth skin bait alpha types. And I'll show you pictures of all these in just a moment. You need to stay to more traditional type cucumbers. For the longest time, we've only really had Corinto and Lisboa. Now we have a couple new ones, which I think were really interesting to have this year. So what went wrong? It felt like everything went wrong this year. The high winds that ripped through the tunnels, well, I'll show you pictures in a moment. I mean, it's amazing how much damage they did because, you know, they're trellised up on strings and they're just twisting in the wind the entire time. So we also had higher than usual damping off. I never experienced damping off with cucumbers because one of the first things I always do is inoculate my soil with one of the trichoderma-based bioinoculants, and that has always done a fabulous job of preventing damping off. For some reason, a couple of the varieties just damped off really bad. I mentioned the winds, and then there's the white mold that came in and wiped out both of my outer rows right after with the high winds had gotten the middle purlin rocking back and forth. So as it was rocking back and forth, it ripped the plants up out of the ground, so they're all hanging there in the air, and then apparently there was enough wind to take some of them and kick them up into the half fan and tangle up in the half fan. So you come in the morning and you have the smell of the fan burning up because there's string all wrapped around it, and the poor plants are hanging there dried up and just dying. It really looked like we had deliberately hung them all. So the outer rows are dying of white mold. The inner row is all dying because I hung my plants. It was a very interesting season. Needless to say, you really can't get good yield numbers when you're constantly replanting things trying to make up. Eventually, we did get a crop off, so you guys at least get to see pictures. So this is my replanting. You all are looking at the replanting after the middle row got ripped out. I'm really good about taking pictures of stuff, but the frustration of coming in the morning and seeing an entire row of cucumbers that are about this long hanging there all dried up, I just completely forgot to take a picture of it. You can picture what I'm talking about though. Just looked like they were all hanging there like this, except every one of them was dead at that point. So here I'm thinking the outer two rows are looking good as my middle row is coming in. They're just starting to fruit, and we started finding white mold all over them. And this is what the white mold, this is timber rot, sclerotinia, white mold. I didn't even know they got on cucumbers. I mean, you see it on the list of disease possibilities, but I had never seen it on here before. And so then we ripped these guys out, drenched the soil with one of the peroxyacetic acids. We used TerraClean. It was what we had on hand, making sure we weren't infecting the next one, reseeded. So what we've got are rows that are constantly out of sync with each other and then damping off to make it all worse. Very, very interesting season. So yield numbers, I looked at them, they made no sense whatsoever. So what you get, this is what wind damage looks like on cukes as it blows through the tunnel. This is the one thing of all of this I know how to fix, okay? From now on a place that's exposed on a plane like at the Southeast Research Farm, I am putting up landscape fabric on that west side about 3 feet out on tomato stakes to kill the wind until we get way into the season. I know that's the last time we're going to see that. That way something else can cause a problem. You just simply eliminate one so something else can get in the way. So this is Corinto, in case you haven't seen it before. It has always been my top producer. It is a wonderful cucumber. This thing makes money for people. And so the way that I do them all is they are in 5-gallon nursery pots, which with the strangeness of the industry means it holds 3.8 gallons of soil. Don't ask me why a 5-gallon nursery pot holds 3.8 gallons. I could get if it was 4.9 gallons, but 3.8 makes absolutely no sense. So I fill it up with a high porosity blend like Fry Brothers 300, ProMix BRK, Lambert high porosity, one of those mixes. Fill it to the top, 2 plants go in each one. So what that does in the row is it puts the plants 6 inches apart. At 6 inches apart, you're clipping them really hard. You are pruning these cucumbers really tough. So what I do is it comes up, and every time you get a break, we allow 1 node on the break and clip it there. Minnesota, they put them 4 inches apart. New York, they go a foot apart in the row, but they allow 2 nodes on the break. There's a lot of different ways to accomplish this very same thing. What has worked well for me, potting media 6 inches apart. So this is Corinto. It's a really nice one. It's got a nice, smooth, sweet flavor to it. So we held a tasting the last couple years as I've been harvesting them, and if you do it blind, and I mean literally blindfolded, you can't tell the difference between cucumber taste. They all end up tasting like cucumbers. The interns thought they had it all figured out, and if you grow them properly, you feed them well, cucumbers have one flavor to them: cucumber flavor. I have yet to see one that tasted all that much better. So this is Lisboa. It's another high producer. What's different about these, and the reason all these seeds are expensive, is they're parthenocarpic, so they don't naturally make more seeds. All these seeds that you see in the cavity, even when you let them get fully mature, they're all sterile seeds. So you're typically paying 40, 60, 80 cents a seed for these 2 varieties. Lisboa is ordinarily a little bit cheaper, so what you are relying on is that 50-cent seed. We'll go to the mean price. That 50-cent seed is going to pay you back generally with about a box of a box of cucumbers. Each plant will give you about a box. I harvest them for 5 to 6 weeks. Once they hit the purlin, which is here, this is about the height that our purlins are set. Once they hit the purlin, you know your time is about up. I let them hang back down, but usually by about 3 or 4 weeks, you start battling powdery mildew. It's not hard to keep it suppressed, but you'll find that by the time you get to the middle of July, the plants are old, you've harvested what you need off of them, and you can revert to outdoor production at that point. So it's time to rip them all out and plant for the fall production run. And we literally go through declip. It takes about an hour to declip a small house. You declip, you rip them all out, top them off with potting media, 2 more seeds back in the pot, and you're running away for the next season. I would have had fall numbers for you, but I changed jobs, and well, my other company was paying for that work. So this is where we are with numbers. So this is Socrates, one of the bait alpha types. It's one of the standards. Socrates, Piccolino, and Katrina are all wonderful bait alpha types if you've got the market for them. They are smooth skinned. Really important if you haven't grown the bait alpha types before is you either need to get them refrigerated quickly or you've got to get a vacuum wrapper for them because they will very quickly get rubbery on you, okay? And that's the one thing with the bait alphas. It's not as bad as the real long ones. The long ones you have to vacuum wrap. With these guys, if you refrigerate them, you'll still get a couple days of life expectancy to them, which you don't have that problem with Lisboa and Corinto. You handle them the way you handle a traditional cucumber. So this is Katrina. It looks very similar. You can see from the picture on your right that sometimes we don't work on weekends at the Penn State Research Farm, and we really should harvest cucumbers every other day. And so you can see sometimes they get a little bit fat. So it's interesting to see what's hanging there on Monday when you miss a day of harvesting. They definitely get a little bit oversized on you. So this is Piccolino. I have long considered this the champion of the bait alpha types. It typically comes in a week early, and the vines are relatively tough. They will stay a week late. And so this is always my first choice for a beta alpha type. They run nicely small, so they're easier to keep managed as well. The vines can be a little weak. They tend to snap in high winds, but other than that, you really can't tell much of a difference. This is our new selection for the year, and this is part of what I was looking at this year's new varieties. This is Bijou 3062. I was not impressed. I'm always looking at these Bijou varieties. They've sent me ones that look like porcupines before. This year they sent me this beta alpha type. The yields were not particularly high on it. The shapes were not great. I don't think it replaces Katrina, Socrates, and Piccolino at this point. There is nothing really to replace them that I have seen out there. So Taurus, if you need a 14 to 16 inch cucumber, if you are looking for something in that class, they hang nice and straight. The yields are extremely heavy. We had this also in our buffer rows. You can get an idea from the ruler at the bottom of the screen. You can get an idea how long these are. Real nice small cavity. This is one I am interested in. If you've got a market for real long cucumbers, this one is a real winner. It produced really high and just stayed with us throughout the entire marketing season. Tasty Jade was the reason we did part of this variety trial. It's a standard in a lot of areas of the country and has been. Unfortunately, Tasty Jade tends to buck. It tends to get, even when it's hanging straight, it will get a lot of curve to it, and a straight cucumber has more value. I thought Taurus, when we were grading them, Taurus graded better, straighter, consistently, and had a little bit higher set. Azamet is the new small one. This one came to us from Seedway Seeds. Real interesting. It's kind of a fat, short cucumber. I liked it a lot. I wasn't too crazy about the production, but the overall shape of it was very impressive. Nothing else special. I'm not a real big fan of the minis. They just don't work well in most of our marketplaces, and so we did the minis because they were a cucumber trial. But to me, Isnik is still the standard of minis that we look for out there. Isnik, nice, consistent, heavy yields all the time. Doesn't seem to get tube botrytis, and just fills baskets up really quickly. Sabre. So we were looking at replacements also for Corinto and Lisboa, or at least something new. The seeds are expensive. So this one came to us from Seedway. It is a very good and direct replacement for Corinto and Lisboa. I'd recommend anybody try this one. So if you're looking at some new parthenocarpic, standard green, prickly cucumbers, Sabre definitely fits into that role. But this one, the seeds are actually cheap on. They're not down to the price of regular cheap cucumber seeds, but this brings these seeds down into a whole other class. Rather than being cheap at 40 cents a seed, I think these were 20 couple cents a seed. That's a real price difference, and it was a little bit smaller cucumber. Some of these indoor ones tend to run kind of large, depending on the market that you're in. Lagos, I thought, did really well. This was one we liked a lot. Had real nice deep skin, filled baskets of it. No real negative characteristics for Lagos, and the price was right. I thought this was a brand new one because I had never seen it till Bijou's trial last summer, but folks tell me it's been around a while. I just don't know. I guess it got rediscovered somewhere. And that's a wonderful way to end the day. Any quick questions?
You said you pulled up cucumbers and planted new ones straight away.
Yes. No, so the question is, we pulled up cucumbers and replanted them. In order to make money growing cucumbers in potting media, you've got to reuse the potting media. You figure potting media is going to cost you $3 to $4 a cubic foot. The only way to make this work is to reuse it over and over again, which is one of the reasons I don't like using a peat light mix like regular Pro Mix BX. I definitely prefer a high porosity mix. It's got to have a good amount of pine fines in it. You want composted pine fines and also core. This is how you maintain structure in the mix. We inoculate regularly with one of the trichodermas, so that would be Biotam, my company's stuff, Root Shield Plus, TerraGrow. You're constantly re-inoculating every 4 to 6 weeks. You jealously guard that soil. So when we clear it out, we rip the plant out the pot. It leaves a little divot. We top them back off with a little bit of fresh potting soil, wet that down, put the seeds in, and away we go again. The first planting, the one in the springtime, we transplant. That way we can get a little bit. This year, transplanting caught us because I am 100% sure from the pattern in there with all the white mold is that the transplants are where the white mold came from. They were right next to tomatoes, and the tomatoes got hit with white mold as well. I'm sure that all came out of our transplant house. And the transplant house is adjacent to the ornamental transplant house, and they had white mold in there too. And the ornamental house is to our west with westerly winds. Yeah, so it was easy. And remember, you know, petunias get all the same diseases we deal with. If a vegetable gets it, petunias get it too. When they say alternaria on petunias, that's early blight, which could get on your tomatoes. Yes, sir.
I grow cucumbers in the middle of an apple orchard, and I'm having trouble with early pollination, or no early cucumbers because of no pollination.
Right.
So I thought, well, I'll stick some Lisbo out there. But I was told that you don't mix that with regular cucumbers or they'll be bitter flavor. Do you know anything about that?
I have never heard that. So the question is about mixing a parthenocarpic type with regular cucumbers, whether you get a bitter flavor. I have never heard, nor have I experienced that. But I have heard people say a lot of stranger things out here. I've heard people say that if you grow squash in the same field with muskmelons, cantaloupes, that it'll make your cantaloupes taste like squash.
Squash have the flavor, that's possible.
Exactly, exactly. So no, I've never heard that. But the problem with growing a parthenocarpic type out in the field, though, is that if it gets pollinated, oftentimes it will make them crook. I can take beautiful straight Corinthos indoors. You grow them out in the field, and I've got pictures of doing it. You'll see they'll buck on you because they will get partially pollinated. They don't need pollination, but the darn bees don't know the difference. You can't label the flowers stay out. I guess you could. Yeah. Yeah, as soon as the flower opens, you put a little sticker over a little Post-it note over the top, keep out. Guys, oh yes.
You mentioned TerraClean when you were talking about your other thing.
Yes.
There. Does that have a negative effect on your T22 products?
So TerraClean is peroxyacetic acid. So the way that we use it is we drench the pot, then wait at least 4 hours for it to have finished doing its thing, and then re-inoculate. So yes, you're going to wipe out what you had in there, but then you put back the good stuff.
If you had a T22 product on your plant and you're going to run TerraClean through the drip, then you got to go back and add more T22 product.
Well, of course. And for a member of the biopesticide industry, we like to sell you that stuff. But you do, in all seriousness, what you gain is when you peroxide, you kill everything that's in there. So it takes out the good guys and the bad guys, and then I simply look at this as cheating at poker. Now you're putting just the good guys back in. So, I mean, there is a sense to it, but yeah, I get it. It's just like when you fumigate. You don't just kill the bad guys when you fumigate.
Do you have to put the good guys back in?
Yes.
In the field?
Well, you should, and the reason that you should after you use peroxide is the first thing that moves back in are always going to be the pathogens. So when you use one of the peroxyacetic acid products and you use that to sanitize, whatever you want to call it, to reduce the population, if you don't put good guys back in, that niche is going to get filled by pathogens first. Because you didn't sterilize the field. You're trying to balance what you're doing. And I look at all of this as just playing poker. To me, this is all just playing poker. You're just doing it, for yourself. Guys, thank you all very much. I hope you enjoyed the Mid-Atlantic meeting very much. This is the last talk, and the only thing I will close with is you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Thank you all very much.